Well, hello and welcome back to the Happy Retirement Show. Thank you so much for joining us again. We've got a great episode prepared for everyone. And Victor, we've got some great feedback about the show so far.
I was excited about that people did see it. I had people actually, when I was out and about in my hometown of Lebanon, actually brought the show up. They had seen it. Yes, it was very exciting. And they said they enjoyed it and thought it was great.
Well, we certainly appreciate that feedback. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our channel, like this video, and you can turn on the notification bell so that you're notified whenever we come out with a future episode. Or if you're listening on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be, make sure you follow the show to get an update every time there is a new episode. And Victor, we've certainly had some interesting times in the stock market and the financial world recently, haven't we?
Well, it's kind of interesting because people are talking about it that normally don't talk about the stock market, but it's kind of on everyone's mind of them hearing about it through the news or, from other people that, the market. And didn't you come up with a term or no, it was a person. I was at a get-together over the weekend, and I had used a term that they had heard, and they said they heard that the stock market was whipsawed.
Really?
Yes. And I had used that term in regard to horses years ago, and they said that they had never heard it since. But now they heard that the market got whipsawed.
Well, I think we feel it. And now when the market is being whipsawed, when things come out and surprise people, it's important to take a gut check, a reality check, and make sure that the plan that you have for retirement, the strategies that you're using, are actually going to be the strategies that get you to last throughout retirement. And today we want to talk about 5 different retirement assassins, if you will. They're things that if you don't pay attention to them, if you don't plan for it ahead of time, can sneak up and ruin and entirely derail your financial life. And by the time they sneak up on you, it's probably too late. Exactly.
Well, Colin, you've obviously heard lots of kids' stories, bedtime stories growing up, etc., particularly because you had a mother that was a teacher and an educated person, of course, and she probably read to you and your sister, and I think that happened to most people.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that has incorrectly groomed people for retirement.
Well, what do you mean?
Okay. Now, Colin, how did all of these stories always end?
They lived happily ever after.
Absolutely. We've been groomed to think that no matter what happens, no matter what situation we go through, we're going to live happily ever after. Because they always did in every story.
Exactly, and they're stories that don't have a happy ending. I've seen movies, I've read books that the ending isn't what I wanted it to be, and I just remember at the end of that story, I'm irritated, I'm aggravated because it didn't end the way I wanted it to.
It didn't end happily ever after. And we meet a lot of people that come in here that are taking advantage of complimentary consultations and, different things that we offer. And a lot of people are not in the criteria of living happily ever after.
No, not everybody is, but to have a happy retirement, and that's what the show's about, the Happy Retirement Show, it's about the fact that you worked, you saved, you got to the point of being able to retire, and you need to make sure that all those decades of working and putting money away and sacrificing, that you reap the rewards of that for the rest of your life.
And then you know what happens?
You live happily ever after.
There you go. And that's why we do the Happy Retirement Show. And there's two sides to the Happy Retirement Show. There's doing what it is you need to do, and then there's not doing what it is you should not be doing.
Exactly.
Now, I had a person come in this week. It was fascinating. He had lived in a foreign country, and what does this have to do with the Happy Retirement Show and what we're talking about? Well, you brought up assassin.
Yes.
Okay. Now, he worked for a major international corporation. He was in a foreign country, and by their standards, he was extremely wealthy.
Okay.
And they knew he also possessed an insurance policy known as kidnap insurance. He actually had a different name for it that was much neater than that. But it was fascinating because he lived in this real mansion. I mean, mansion on top of a hill. And he had an Israeli... Now, he wasn't in Israel.
Okay.
But they imported an Israeli task force of protectors for him and his family. They had 12 guard dogs loose on the property at all times, and it was a rotating 12 dogs. I didn't ask how many total. I was curious afterwards. And then whenever the kids went to school, and it was very private school, very protected, that whenever they left, it was 3 armored cars together.
Wow.
Now, and you know what their fear was, of course, being attacked.
Being kidnapped.
Or assassinated. Just killed.
Yeah.
Because you didn't do what they wanted or pay, for protection or whatever. And that was imminent danger at all times.
Yes.
Okay? I think retirement there's always these imminent dangers at all times that could negatively affect your retirement that you have to stay away from. You can't go down the wrong path and expect to get the right experience so that you can ultimately
have a happy retirement.
And live
happily ever after.
Yeah, and that's really what it's all about.
Well, Victor, let's talk about these 5 retirement assassins that, in your experience, you've had 42 years of helping people retire. I mean, you've seen these things affect people. The number one is in times like this.
Right. Volatility.
Reacting wrongly and having a plan that doesn't consider volatility. That's number one.
Well, we've preached for years, and, people don't remember that in 2022 we had a major downturn.
In both stocks and bonds.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people think that if stocks go up, bonds go down. If stocks go down, bonds go up. Well, there can be a correlation to the cause of the ups and downs, but they're not correlated opposite of each other. That's a misnomer. But in 2022, it was whipsawed down and then, right back up because, they went in and they did certain things with interest rates and they just kept reducing, et cetera. But people didn't really realize that we can have downturns in the market and there's not going to be this instantaneous fix. And we may actually go into a downturn that can be uncomfortable for people. And if you're ill prepared or not even prepared at all, you could be emotionally, financially damaged by a downturn like that.
Absolutely.
And you have to figure they happen. They happen on a regular basis. So why would you be surprised when they do?
Exactly. Over the long run, depending on how you look and how you measure, the full risk of the stock market, S&P 500, full risk of the market is averaged between, let's say, 7 to 9% per year average rate of return.
Right.
Now, that's not a guarantee it'll happen in the future.
Sure.
But if we look at what's happened over the long term in history, and then we experience a lot of years well above average returns, then it only makes sense to assume that in the future, we're likely to maybe not have as many good years of as much money, or might have a downturn to get us back to where things normally are.
Well, Colin, you talk about this in your teaching events that you do at universities, et cetera, that if a person is pulling money out of their accounts and there's certain sequence of events happens, even though there may be an overall average of a decent amount, decent rate of return, they can end up with no money at the end.
Absolutely. And very, very frightening when the things that get you to retirement, you work, you put money in even during downturns, you buy more shares, but it's an entirely different set of decisions in retirement. The things that get you to retirement will not be the same habits that let you stay happily retired, and that's very counterintuitive for a lot of people.
Oh, the assassin bullet is to not do the wrong thing or be doing the wrong thing into that assassin's bullet of a down market. And so many times people are incorrectly at the incorrect amount of risk, and that causes that knee-jerk reaction that gets them out of the market right when it starts going back up, and they miss the recovery, or they miss, 5 days over an extended period of time can make a big difference in rate of return, that if you missed the 5 best days in X number of years, your retirement was cut by 80%.
Right.
I mean, just so many things.
And that's what's so hard about trying to time the market is people think, oh, I've got to figure out when to get out of the market. And let's say a person could do that, which histories and studies and data shows that people can't do that. But let's say a person could know the exact time to get out of the market. Well, then they have to know the exact right time to get back in. They have to be right twice.
Right.
It's hard enough to be right once.
Right.
So we're big believers. Be at the right amount of risk and have a plan for when you're going to need that retirement money to make sure it is going to last as long as you do. Another thing, the second assassin for retirement is not factoring in the consequences of inflation. Every year, everything we buy is going to cost more. An example that I like to use and have heard is think about when you were a young adult starting your career and think about how much a postage stamp costs just to send a letter around. And think about what that was, get that number in your mind, and compare it to how much stamps are today. Now, that's just one example of everything we buy. The important thing is that you can't have a sufficient retirement income at 65 without understanding how you're going to have pay raises by 70, 75, 80, 85 to make sure that not only do you stay retired with the income, but that you preserve your lifestyle, the way of living that you've worked hard to have.
Well, when people were in their working years that are retired, and we've worked with a lot of union people and a lot of people that had negotiated contracts, et cetera, and they would get a 50 cent, 75 cent, $1.25 per hour raise. And, that was, a big deal. It met the needs as far as higher costs, inflation, et cetera. But they were periodic, step-by-step raises to meet their current needs. Well, it's illogical to think that just because you're retired, you don't need pay raises, because you do. Insurance costs certainly are going up and go up. Taxes are going up and will continue to go up. And I'm talking not only income tax, but primarily property tax. And you've got then, just your cost of health care, medications, going to the doctor, insurance for health care, car insurance, everything. And then, one of the things that's fascinating to me is I'm sitting with people and they're retired and, I want to sit there and I want them, this happy retirement, it's the name of our podcast and everything, but it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. It's what I want when these people, come in. I want them to be happy. I want them to, live the life that they want. The happy retirement couple, the happy retirement guy, he's getting new golf clubs, whatever. I've said all that to get to this. When they come in and it's time to get a new car, talk about where inflation is impactful and noticeable is when they're going to go get the same car that they've been driving and they've been driving it for maybe 5, 6, 7 years. They're not a person or a couple that changes cars, every 2 years or 3 years, whatever. They've been a few years and they had a $25,000 car. And now that car's $40,000. Yes. So now they've got this year we have an extra expense of $40,000.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
Well, it's a lot of money, and your plan has to be designed for when you're going to have to buy cars.
And you're going to have to buy another car.
Exactly.
Whatever car you're driving probably is not going to last the rest of your life.
Exactly.
We hope not.
We hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I want to outlive my car. Yeah, that's my goal.
Have to be smart, have to be careful. Got a few minutes left.
Okay.
One of the other ones that can really sneak up and kill your retirement is if you don't have a plan, if, God forbid, you or your spouse needed some sort of long-term health care. And It's amazing because we hear all the time, and this is a myth, hear all the time, the nursing home is going to take your house, take all your money, and they're just going to bankrupt you. And that's not how it works, is it, Victor?
No, I mean, it's no different than going to a hotel. I mean, you check into a hotel, they want paid for the night and the day you stay there. You order room service, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Oh, by the way, send me a snack in the evening. Whatever it is, you pay the bill as you go. And same way, if you need health care, you're going to get a monthly bill.
Exactly.
And, that bill needs to be paid. And hopefully that never occurs with people. But yet we know statistically and in real life experience of people that we help, it's a real thing. And especially if there's one person of a couple still at home and one person needs care, that, can the person at home still afford to live if you're suddenly having 7, 8, 10, 12, 15,000 going out per month in providing care for someone. The other thing is, even if you're a single person, is having enough money that if you need care, that you can afford the care that you want. And you can afford the care that you want to have and require. I guess there's certain things in life that you for sure don't want to go cheap on. Okay?
Right.
Now, one of them would be a hotel. I'm going on vacation and I'm going to a bad place.
Right.
Because that's all I want to spend. Well, that wouldn't be good. You wouldn't do that.
No, you wouldn't.
And you don't want a bad meal. Oh, I'm going to this restaurant because it's cheap. I know the food's bad, but that's all I want to spend. Okay? That's unrealistic. All right. Can you imagine you're looking for care to take care of you at a time you maybe can't take care of yourself or need assistance, whatever? You want the best you can get.
Absolutely.
And it's expensive, and you want to have a plan and have the money that you can be taken care of with dignity for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One other, or two other, we got two left real quick.
Oh, my.
Assassins in retirement is not having a plan for higher taxes in the future. See, everybody's grown up being told when you're going to be in retirement, your tax bracket will be lower, you'll have less income. Therefore, you should do the lion's share of your savings in tax-deferred accounts like IRAs, 401ks, TSPs, 457s, SEP, Simples, etc. And that's where you should save for retirement, because when you take it out later, you'll be in a lower tax bracket. Except if you actually look at, number one, historical tax rates. If you look at the history of tax rates in our country, dramatically lower taxes today, although it might not feel like it, but tax rates are lower today than at most of our country's history that we've had in income tax.
Correct.
So number one, taxes aren't actually as high as people think they are. But number two, we have our national debt that is blowing up and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We have unfunded obligations for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and these are obligations down the road that when the government needs to raise money for that, well, how are they going to do it? They can either print it or they can tax it. And it's my belief, in my opinion, as with a lot of other experts, that taxes have been historically higher, so it makes sense that when they need revenue in the future, just do what they used to do, just raise tax rates. So there's a big threat.
Matter of fact, that's their, they're not producing anything.
No.
They're not making cars and selling them. They're not selling widgets somewhere.
No.
They're sitting around saying, well, we want a pay raise. Mm-hmm. How are we going to get more money? Oh, let's do more business. What is our business? We're in the taxing business.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they raise taxes.
Exactly.
Get a pay raise.
Mm-hmm. And how most politicians, let's talk about Social Security just for a minute, that any politician that's tried to fix Social Security has gotten voted out of office because it's a program that's like a sacred cow. Nobody wants to touch it or change it or anything like that. Okay. Well, how else can that program maybe be fixed? Well, then you might just say, well, hey, we'll just raise taxes, and that is a backwards way of cutting benefits to the program.
Absolutely. If you're getting a $3,000 a month Social Security check, and let's say it was at zero tax, you're getting $3,000. Well, we need to reduce that benefit down to $2,500. Oh, well, you just tax it $500 and you reduce the benefit.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So you have to have a plan to protect yourself from the potential impact of higher taxes. And we're big believers. You should pay every dollar you owe, but not leave the IRS a tip. Be smart, be careful, and have a plan to reduce your income tax.
Absolutely.
Last assassin we'll talk about this week for retirement is procrastination. Now, Victor, how can procrastination hurt people in their retirement planning?
Well, wait just a minute. Let me. Oh, no, I was procrastinating there. Sorry. Well, they put off looking at what they know they should be looking at. That's where the procrastination starts. Oh, I don't even want to look at it. It's uncomfortable. I know this needs to be addressed. I know this is true, but I'm putting it off. Then they actually look at it and say, okay, here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to go. Here's how I want things to be, but I'm going to wait on doing anything about it. Well, inflation's not waiting. Higher taxes aren't waiting. Your potential need for health care, those things aren't waiting. So consequently, you need to take action and say, okay, I'm okay. I know I'm okay because I've addressed these issues. So procrastination is simply a form of delaying success.
Exactly.
Don't delay success.
No, and we'd be happy to help you on your journey to a happy and fulfilling retirement. You can click the link below, set up a time to visit no cost, no obligation with myself and or Victor or both of us if we're both available. And we'd love to see how we can help serve you on your road to having a happy retirement. You can also give us a call at 513-984-5999 or visit ghwealthadvisors.com.
And don't procrastinate.
Thank you for joining us here on the Happy Retirement Show, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Start building a more secure future for you and your family. Take the first step toward financial clarity by scheduling a no-cost, no-obligation consultation with Grayhurst Wealth Advisors. See if we're the right fit for you by scheduling a consultation. Call us today at 513-984-5999 or click the link in today's show description to get started.